Hi, team. What do you do when you are invaded by an unstoppable force? At different times in history, different people have faced an unstoppable force. At the end of World War II, Japan faced the reality of total destruction when two of its cities were destroyed by the United States with atomic bombs. Japan unconditionally surrendered. That's a pretty standard outcome, but it's not the only one. During the Greco-Persian Wars, the Spartans came up with a dramatic response of a completely different kind. The 300 Spartans actually stopped an army of maybe 2 million Persians by picking the exact right spot, the mountain pass of Thermopylae, to prevent them from entering Greece. Their famous stand lasted 1 week, and they all died. An unstoppable force is an unstoppable force. Sometimes you have to die instead of surrendering. As Patrick Henry, the great American patriot, once said, "Give me liberty or give me death." At the Battle of the Alamo, when the Texans were surrounded by the Mexican army, that was the choice they made too. Today, we look at a similar problem, the invasion of Russia by Napoleon's Grand Army. Who was Napoleon, and why did he invade Russia, a country so far from his own country of France? The answer is that Napoleon was the military commander who took control of France when the French Revolution unraveled. As we saw in our Anchorfact series on European history, the French Revolution was the uprising against the corrupt monarchy of French kings who had bankrupted their country. The French Revolution spun out of control, however, because of the powerful hatred of people towards their king, which could not be contained. And many of its leaders, such as the infamous Robespierre, channeled that anger into murder and destruction. But why was Russia involved? The answer is that all the kings of Europe were corrupt, and they were afraid of their own people rebelling against monarchy too. America no longer had a king. Now France was getting rid of its king. Who would be next, they wondered? The answer is just about everyone, because there was an unstoppable force coming for them, the power of the will of the people. And there's that unstoppable force again. The problem for the kings was they were too powerful and corrupt to see the truth of history that was bearing down on them like a freight train. They decided to attack France, and they bore the consequences. Have you ever read the French national anthem? It says that the French people will water their crops with the blood of invaders. They did, especially because of Napoleon. He pointed the way. He crossed the Alps and conquered Italy. And by the way, so did the Russians, but in retreat. The Russian crossing is not that famous because it doesn't deserve to be. Napoleon rose to power in the French Revolution because he was a military genius like Alexander the Great, and he used that genius to conquer nearly all of Europe in revenge for attacking France during the Revolution. When he swept through Europe, Russia tried to make a deal with him. The Tsar of Russia would control Eastern Europe as its empire, and Napoleon would control the West as a French empire. But when the Russians reneged on the deal, Napoleon had no mercy. He invaded with his Grande Armée, probably the biggest army seen in Europe since the invasion of the Persian Empire. It was an unstoppable force. So what did the Russians do? They got out of the way. That's one thing you can do. And they practiced what are known as scorched earth tactics. That means you burn everything in front of an invading army, so they have no resources to claim and take advantage of as they move forward. In fact, when Napoleon arrived in Moscow, he found the city in flames. Moscow was not like other European cities. It was made of wood, kind of like that house in the story of the Three Little Pigs. Not good enough. But the scorched earth method did work in one way. Napoleon realized that he had not actually won anything by invading Russia. The country was too huge to control, and winter was coming. Napoleon retreated from Moscow as the winter set in, and his army largely froze to death. Just look and imagine how awful it was. They starved too. Remember that the Russians had destroyed their crops. Then they were attacked by the Russians as they retreated, which made things that much worse. And finally, the rest of Europe rallied. They saw their chance thanks to the sacrifice of the Russians. They combined their power with Russia to defeat Napoleon at the Battle of the Nations. First of the great patriotic wars that they remember for the terrible cost of having to be a part of Europe. Most adults don't get why Russia of today feels like it absolutely has to fight a war in Ukraine. If you were Russian, you would know. You would know about the story of Napoleon's invasion. Russian children know it. And you would know that being a part of Europe has been a very painful experience for Russia. As we continue this series, you'll see the other great patriotic wars that reinforce this feeling. Russia is what it is today because of its history. Let's continue to learn that history together. See you soon.